Hi everyone, this is Arpad from the YouTube channel Starpath Academy, and I'm doing my post-Soviet podcast series where I answer questions that were posted by my viewers and my members who would like to know more about my experiences in the 90s of post-Soviet Romania. And the question goes: what income group survived the best? People that were already poor, middle class, rich, super rich. So we are talking about the 90s high inflationary period after the fall of the Soviet Union and the fall of communist Romania. So, the answer would be very simple and quick, which would be just super rich. And that would be it, right? It's always the super rich, the ones that you don't even know about or you don't even hear about. Those couple of families that really rule everything from behind the scenes, I should say. So, that would be, of course, the simple answer, because when we talk about communism, capitalism, socialism, and everything in between, you guys and you people take those labels seriously. You read up on the economic policies, the economic theories, and so on and so forth. But the people who are actually running these systems, maybe they cared when it was started, but not after 10, 15 years of any of the systems that we just enumerated, or even the ones that might be coming. It's really just kind of a mantle that is put on to hide the original or the true incentives, that is to rule the rest of the people. So when the super rich were in Romania in 89 and prior, they were communists. When communism fell, they became capitalists. Sure, the oligarchy changed a little bit, but not by that much, right? The parties that formed were pretty much from the same cloth that was during communism. The same in Romania, the same in Hungary, the same in Ukraine, and so on and so forth. There was actually another wave of change that happened kind of 10 years afterwards, after the so-called system change. That was an attempt to change the oligarchy, and it happened in some countries to some degree, but not to other countries, and maybe to other degrees. But it was mostly because of infights between the super rich. And we can talk about Yeltsin and Russia and what happened afterwards. But of course, the answer would be the super rich. But let's talk about more on this question. So we mentioned the poor, the middle class, and the upper middle class, or rich, I guess. When these economic shifts happen and when these major calamities happen, the poor are affected, but their lifestyle is not affected that much, depending on what type of poor there are. Now, the definition of poor got really updated in my head when I traveled to the United States, right? Poor in a lot of cases meant that were people in cities who were unwilling to work, who maybe had some mental issues or anything in between. However, poor in Romania was very different. Poor in rural counties in the United States means very different, right? Poor in Los Angeles could mean, of course, it means many things, but it could mean someone who cannot afford the latest iPhone, so therefore he has to riot. Now, again, it could be many different things, and I don't want to say that riots only happen because of these things, but I'm saying that people can convince you of being poor, even if you kind of blow up the scale a little bit and you look past between the counties that you live in, past the states that you live in, but by golly gee, past the country that you live in. And if you take a look at the poor families in some counties where you think they are poor, they are actually would be considered rich or super rich compared to the global scale. So I want to say that we cannot measure things by just these simple labels, I want to say, because it becomes much more complex. The reason why I wanted to say this, of course, is that when I mentioned that the lifestyle of the poor doesn't change that much, that was true in, let's say, Southern American countries, whether they were poor before or after an economic collapse, their lifestyle didn't change that much. It was very similar to the Romanian farmers or people in rural counties living in Romania, whether they were living in communism, prior communism, after communism, their lifestyle was pretty much the same. So they were not affected that much, right? But I don't think that would be the case in the United States, because if the poor in the United States would be reset, they would be reset to the level of poverty on an international scale, which is way, way below that. And I would say that it would be true for the poor living in cities. Now, of course, you can probably point me to some examples in some rural counties in Oklahoma or Idaho or somewhere, that West Virginia probably, where, okay, their lifestyle might not change because they are self-sufficient poor, right? Which I wouldn't even consider poor. But anyway, in the sense that they're living their own lives, at least free in some way. So I wanted to say that because that was the case in Romania. The poor were not that much affected. It was mostly the middle class and upper middle class and the rich, the echelons that were way above the norm, but not in the super rich area, right? If you are a millionaire, if you are listening to the show, well, welcome, right? I hope more of you listen, but basically, if you have somewhere between 1 million and 10 million, or maybe 50 million in assets, you are the target of the reset. You are the one that they think that we need to get rid of because you are just mooching the system or something like that. They don't necessarily believe in a hierarchy, right? And whether it will be achieved with a global reset or with a financial reset or hyperinflation or deflation first, the goal would be to get rid of the middle management class. If you take a look at some big companies, let's just say Amazon stores, or one of these stores where you can physically take a look at some clothes or whatever and try them on online or via 3D visualization and that type of things. Well, what are they always trying to achieve? They are trying to achieve efficiency, right? In their sense, it's efficient. Now, yes, and it might be true, it's efficient to some degree, right? But it's not efficient in the sense that everyone becomes so much more reliant on one centralized global system, right? It might be efficient for the short term, yes, great, but on the long term might not be sustainable in the sense that there's no competition, right? And if you kill off competition, you will kill off innovation in some ways, right? So we're not going to get into that, but it's always the middle class, upper middle class, and very rich, because that is where the power lies that after reset is taken away. So middle class, upper middle class, rich people, at least the people that we consider rich, right? And those are the target. those are the targets, and unfortunately, many of them have it so well off. Well, fortunately for them, right? But unfortunately, they don't even know that they are the target, right? So yeah, and I mean, there are people. I don't envy them at all. I'm happy for them. I wish more would be that, but I wish that they would be more in tune with regular people, and they would be more in tune that they are being targeted with the Great Reset and all of that agenda. So that was wiped out twice, right? That was wiped out before communism came. The aristocracy, right, was wiped out when communism came. And that was, of course, it was sold to the proletariat that how great that system will be, and maybe that was they truly believed that, right? But what happened? The hierarchy steps back, but it's a different hierarchy. So if you believe that under Romanian communism everyone was equal, you're drinking something, and let me know what it is, right? There were party people, and even in the party there were this strict hierarchy that you could not even go up or down in. It was almost like born in, and based on your ideology and based on your willingness to serve and the party line, you were pushed up or down on that a little bit, but you were either in or out, really out. So that was the case, and that meant that there was a new hierarchy forming, right? It wasn't the next year, but eventually it formed, and we had a different type of aristocracy, right? The communist aristocracy, the Politburo, a very different one, but in structure it was very similar. Now that was wiped out again, right? And with the hyperinflation, and when the rulers of the country and the rulers of Eastern Europe decided that communism was no longer needed because we have achieved the urbanization process in Eastern Europe, and we can take over with the capitalist system and kind of make bank out of these countries that way, right? So you have to don't be naive. What I'm saying. You can believe in whatever your system you want to believe in, but know what human nature is, know what the plan is, and what the reset is, and that most people will get reset into the basic poverty line of owning nothing and living in the system and the very, very basic level. And yes, that will be sold as something for you. In Romania, first time it was being sold as equality, right? Later on as equal opportunity in the 90s, right? And all of them were somewhat true, right? And now it's going to be sold as efficiency, because robots do everything more efficient, and you will be provided with UBI. So I don't even know what this new system will be called, but it will be interesting to see. So that's their plan, of course. What will happen, we'll see. And I think we also have a say in that. But for that, you have to be thinking more, and you have to wake up your neighbors, and you have to wake up your rich uncles. It's going to be very important, because they at least wield some power and don't even know that they are being targeted. So that was the case. I hope this answered some of your question. Thank you very much, and see you next time.